All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on migrant worker mobility during COVID-19. My name is Ryan, and alongside my counterpart, Eliza McLaughlin, we coordinate the migrant worker program here at Cooper Institute. Cooper Institute is a nonprofit popular education collective which collaborates with various groups across PEI to push for social and economic change. As part of the migrant worker program, myself, Eliza, and the rest of the PEI action team for migrant worker rights support and work with migrant workers, focusing or work work alongside migrant workers while advocating for change. Today's presentation is going to be one in a series of presentations for migrant workers, hosted both in English and in Spanish. So for those of you interested, please keep updated with our Facebook and our YouTube pages for upcoming information sessions focusing on employment standards on PEI happening later in November. So without further ado, I would like to introduce this evening's speaker, Jael Duarte. Jael is a lawyer with LA Henry Law based out of Fredericton, New Brunswick. She is a member of the Law Society of New Brunswick and a Colombian lawyer who is fluent in English, Spanish, and French. Jael is an active member of No One is Illegal Fredericton, an organization that is part of a worldwide migrant justice movement rooted in anti-colonial and anti-capitalist politics. Perfect. Well, thank you. Jael, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So I'm going to do a presentation, also a PowerPoint presentation so people can follow. Thank you for this invitation, for sharing this information that I'm sure and I hope it will be helpful for many, many people. So I'm sharing my screen here. And we are on. Okay, immigration paths in PEI for foreign workers. So I'm going to start talking about the Open Work Permit for Vulnerable Workers. It's one of the programs the federal government opened for due to COVID, but it's not necessarily, the vulnerable worker is not necessarily have to have a situation related to COVID. We're going to see. So it's when a vulnerable worker is a foreign worker who he has been a victim of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Sexual abuse, it can be harassment, doesn't have to be touching, doesn't have to be. If it is, it's always, there is a program also, but it's really large. Psychological abuse, again, it could be harassment too. Financial abuse, it could be, for example, not respecting the employment standards. I want to remind people, or maybe telling people if they don't know, foreign workers and any Canadian or permanent resident have the same employment standards. So being a foreign worker is not an excuse for an employer. Having a foreign worker is not an excuse for an employer to not respect employment standards. So not respecting employment standards from the employer is a financial abuse. Also, for example, keeping the passports, keeping the money, or taking more than the money from the salary, that is financial abuse. There is also abuse in the context of COVID. So we can say an abuse in context of COVID. It could be, for example, retaining people at their place of living. We know many immigrant workers, they live at the same place where they work. That sometimes, and it's normal having that part of the contract, but that doesn't mean the person is in a jail. No, the person is just living there and it's part of their contract. So that can happen. So hopefully it's not happening. We don't want that. Fortunately, there is this program for if a foreign worker is in a situation of abuse, they can have the federal government opened this program for these workers. So what are the requirements? The foreign worker have to be working with a work authorization. So an LMAA, I'm sure a foreign worker know what is an LMAA. If not, we can talk about that during the questions. An LMAA exempt. What is an LMAA exempt? There are many ways to be LMA exempt. For example, when there is an agreement between a country, Mexico, for example, but there are other agreements. When the employer don't have to do an LMAA to employ to have a contract with a foreign worker. Or for example, the Atlantic. The Atlantic is an agreement between the Atlantic program is an agreement between the federal government and the Atlantic provinces. They already did all the process to justify to each province, the employer did all the process to justify the employer that they need to hire foreign workers. That is the reason they are LMA exempt. Or maintaining a status. What is maintaining a status? Is when a person with a work permit is ending the work permit, so they apply for a new one. And that is really, unfortunately, really has been really common since COVID, because it's taking so long time for the federal government to answer, while they also had to live with COVID and work with COVID. So they are taking a long time to answer. So many people are between the application for the new work permit and without an answer. So that is maintaining the status. They fulfill all the requirements. They probably will have a new work permit under the same conditions, but at that moment they don't have it in their hands. So that means maintaining status. They apply it and they are just waiting. So the abuse has to be in the context of the employment. So it has to be related to their employment. Unfortunately, abuse can happen. It could be maybe, for example, I'm going to do an example, a situation of racism outside in the city or in the town, but it's not related to the employment. So that couldn't be taken as abuse for this program. But if there is racism, the person is living with this situation from in the context of the employment, maybe the supervisor, maybe the manager, doesn't have to be the owner of the company, but it's the context of employment, so that could be a situation of abuse for this program. So that they can look here, it says experiencing abuse or being at risk of experiencing abuse. So you don't have to wait to leave the situation. You don't have to wait, okay, maybe that happened, or maybe I receiving treatment, but I don't have to wait. I'm at risk and I can prove it. Prove it, evidence of abuse. The evidence of abuse is always better to have proof. For lawyers, we always ask, but it's not like you have, if you have a recording, for example, of someone telling you things, if you have a picture, if you have a text message, an email, that can be a proof, the evidence of the abuse. But also, maybe you don't have that, but you can do an affidavit. It's a declaration with a notary where you say things. It's always more stronger is the evidence, more stronger is the case, of course. So for this program, if I'm sorry, I'm doing really fast because it is a lot of information, but it will be the questions. And also for this particular program, the Cooper Institute can help you. If you feel that is abuse, you don't have to know employment law. You don't have to know the law in Canada. If you feel that you have been victim of abuse, you can contact the Cooper Institute and Charlottetown in PEI for any ways, Facebook, the YouTube, while the YouTube channel maybe you saying, oh, contact me, or maybe something confidential, or messages, calling, email, anyways, you can contact the Cooper Institute and they can help you go through this open work permit and see if you fulfill the requirements, and helping you with all the process. So I'm gonna pass. As I say, there is a lot of information, and there's hopefully we always want you are not in the situation of abuse, but if you are, you know now that you have an opportunity for an open work permit. One thing, and maybe I go back, because one thing I want to say too, this is an open work permit for the person to find another job. Because, well, I want to say something that is not surprising, but because we know it's so difficult to have an LMAA and to convince an employer to do all the process for an LMAA, or including the Atlantic pilot or everything. But so the federal government give an open work permit temporary. So it will be to give the person to find another closed work permit. So that is also one of the conditions that I wanted to make that point. So let's say there is nothing happening there, or maybe the person find another job. So how I immigrate to PEI? There are many people, and I know some of my clients have been in that situation, that have been working a lot of time, years and years as temporary workers. And it's a way of life, and there are people who are happy like that. They come to Canada, they work for a time, they earn some money, and they go back to the country, and it's okay. But some people are saying, oh, I would like really to immigrate to Canada. And I really like PEI, so I want to live in PEI. So there are different programs. I'm going to mention there is the critical workers, there is the program international graduates, there is the PEI express entry, the skilled worker in PEI, a skilled worker outside of Canada, the Atlantic pilot, the Atlantic immigration pilot, and the TR2PR. So I'm going to focus in critical workers and the Atlantic and the TR2PR. Why I'm not gonna talk about the others, because the others are for skilled workers. That means people who has a high level of education, and it's not the common. If you have question about these other programs, we could talk about it during the questions, and I could talk more about it. But I choose to talk about critical workers and the Atlantic immigration pilot and the TRPR, because I consider foreign workers are more likely to be successful in these programs. And it's really, really special to PEI, for foreign workers working in PEI. So we start. Critical workers. So this is an application that the person do first to the Office of Immigration in PEI, and there are some requirements. It's offered for people who are considered for the province as critical workers. That means workers that the province needs. The province PEI need these workers, and that is because they are under LMAA. So the job has to be full-time, non-seasonal. So that means the job has to be permanent or at least 2 years. The job offer can be the level C or D. For example, an example for a level C is the fish and seafood plant worker. That is, I put the NOC in case you wanted to know the NOC. And it's just an example. There are other examples. It's the level C or D. So just to make a fast explanation about the NOC. The NOC is the number and the classification the federal government made for all the possible jobs in Canada for workers coming from outside of Canada, being foreign workers, immigrating through the express entry. So this is called the NOC, and there are different levels, A, B, C, D, even 0, A, B, C, D. So the C and D are the jobs for workers, for people working in factory, as you see, laboring fish, or so I did these examples, and this for critical workers, the job offer has to be level C or D. What is considered a job offer? A job offer can be, or the letter, I want to hire you full-time, permanent, or at least 2 years, or the person is already working there and have a full-time, non-seasonal, permanent, or at least 2 years. That is considered a job offer. The person is already working. Have worked minimum 6 months full-time for a PEI employer. Having a valid work permit. As you see, the person sometimes they have the LMAA, they worked for 6 months, and they come back with a full-time offer, or they just don't come back because COVID, the federal government allowed people to apply for work permits inside Canada. Yeah, it was difficult for many people, and we know that, to go back to their countries of origin and coming back. So it's possible, and that happens, that the person is already working and is applying for a new work permit. So the person already worked full-time 6 months for a PI employer, having a valid work permit and legal status in Canada. And this is really the age. The age is really flexible for the PEI program. The person has to be 18 years old or to 59 years old. So it's really flexible, and it's opening. It's a really opening for many people. So for this critical, so we say 2 years of experience. So that is important. Is when the person applies for that job, the person more than the 6 months working for that for a PI employer has to have already 2 years of experience in a full-time work experience or relevant education in the past. So that in the past 5 years, that means the person can have that experience or that education in their country of origin. I know it's a little confusing, so I'm going to explain again. These 2 years can be experience in their country of origin, or relevant education in their country of origin in the past 5 years. The 6 months I was talking before is the 6 months working for an employer. So it's the two conditions. Language test, that is it's a difficulty for many people, but let's say it's the score 4. So if someone has been doing this test, the test recognized by the federal government is the IELTS or the CELPIP. There are the tests. The IELTS, you have to be really careful if you are taking the IELTS, because the IELTS, there are two kinds of IELTS. There is the academic IELTS and the skills IELTS. The academic is to study at the university or college in English. So that is not the test. The test to immigrate to Canada is the IELTS skills. Or to make it simpler, if you are paying, you just say, I want to do the IELTS to immigrate to Canada. So to be sure you are paying the right test and you are doing the right test to immigrate to Canada. The CELPIT is another test that you can do, and it's only in North America or on some Asian countries when you can do it. It's not in any part of the world, so you have to be sure. Well, sometimes the question now, do I do the IELTS or the CELPIP? It's depending of your culture. It's depending of your personality. You can decide that the IELTS is focused in writing, is focused in reading. Of course, they're gonna test your ability to talk and to listen. But if maybe you are better speaking and listening, and you are not too good writing, the CELPIT is better for you because they focus better in communication skills. So it's depending of the person, but depending on the personality, the culture of the person, which test is better, because what we want is to have a good score. The minimum score of 4 is the minimum. The score is the minimum score, because I say there are different skills, and if you, for example, you have 5 in speaking, you have 6 in listening, you have 4 in writing, and 4 in reading, your score will be 4. So the less you have, it will be your score. That score say to the Canadian government that you are able to you have a level of the language enough to work. So it's a low level comparing to a level for education, for going to the university. The level to going to university is much higher. The other condition is a financial resources to pay all immigration costs, including traveling expenses for you and your family. Remember, this is an application for permanent residency, so you are applying as family. You are applying if you have a wife or a husband or a common law partner or, or children. You are applying as family, and you have to show the you have to show that you have enough financial resources to to pay all the immigration cost for and traveling expenses for you and your family. You have to include them. Sometimes sometimes couples say, oh, but my wife, she doesn't want to migrate. It's me who wants to migrate, but she's not sure. Even if she's not sure, maybe she's not immigrating. But be careful. You have to tell that you have a wife. Anyway, even if she's not migrating, you have to always say, answer the truth. If they ask you, are you married? Are you in common law? You have to say yes. And the question, is she immigrating with you? Well, there is another question. And the genuine intention to settle in PEI. Remember, this is a program from the province. So you have to show the province that you are interested in settling PEI. How you show that? Let's say you bought a house in PEI. So, of course, if you own a house in PEI, you are settling there. Maybe your husband, your wife, your partner is living already in PEI. So and having friends, you have been for in PEI under an LMAA or temporary work permit for 3 years, for 2 years, and you have friends, you have even maybe family. So you can show in many ways that you are interested. Your children, maybe your children have been already in school. So you can show in many ways that you have intention, real intention to settle in PEI. There is a special point about transport truck drivers. Look, the person have to have working as a long haul truck driving at least 12 months. The job offer has to be a job offer for an eligible PEI employer. That means the employer, and I'm saying what means the requirement for the employer is not any employer. So the physical structure has to be owned and leased by the employer. So the physical structure has to be in PEI. It can't be a company in another province. It has to be in PEI, the company. It has to be open for business. They have to be an office with office hours and employees, the secretary, the receptionist, the person who takes the orders, the inventory. So that has to be an office. They have to have areas where the equipment is parked, stored, maintained. And it has to be in continuing an active operation for at least 24 months. So 24 months, 2 years, working all that time. That is the condition for the employer. So if you are with a new company, you have to wait until the company has 24 months working in PEI and fulfilling all the requirements. If there is a company well established, okay, so you fulfill the requirement. So this is the employer requirements for the others. So the other foreign workers who wants to apply for the critical workers force, and so the employer have to fill the PEI workforce job offer form. So you have to have the support of your employer to apply for this program. The company has to be active in PEI for at least 2 years. The employment is intended is considered. That, remember when I said they are asking working in that field before, or maybe you started to work in that field before. LMAA if applicable. Remember I said sometimes people have the LMAA, sometimes people have the LMAA exempt because there are agreements between countries, between Canada and another country, and this agreement say, oh no, you don't need an LMAA here, you are an LMAA exempt. And the employer has to support you and pay 230 compliance fee. So you have to tell the employer that you're applying for this, and there are employers who wants to do that too. This is not necessarily. There are employers who wants to, yeah, we are calling about the critical workforces. So these employers are happy with this employee. They want to keep that employee working because it's the best person they can feel, and they are willing to support the employee to become a permanent resident PI. So what you have to do if you fulfill the requirements, you have to do an expression of interest to the province. You have to wait for an invitation to apply. Once you have your invitation to apply, you have 60 days to prepare your application. You submit your application to the provincial and the federal government. And once you finally say, okay, you are ready, you land. Landing means you have to tell the province, I'm here. Maybe it's not necessarily because, yeah, with COVID, some landing is like, okay, I arrived, but I was already here. So you tell the province, I am here. So I'm landing, I'm settling in PI. Okay. Oh, I'm going. Well, at the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, I have to say something here. This was a pilot, and it's a pilot until December 2021. But it has been accepted because it was a pilot. The federal government said, we really like this program. It's helping the provinces. So it will be a permanent program since next year. So it's a good news. With these conditions, maybe it will be changes. We don't know exactly what kind of changes. So these conditions apply until December 2021, but maybe I don't guess. I guess the changes is not gonna be critical because how we know the program has been successful. So we have, through the Atlantic Migration Pilot Project, we have 3 streams. We have the high skilled program, the intermediate skilled program, the international graduate. So the international graduate is a program for students, so people who studied in PEI or any province in the Atlantic. So the Atlantics, if you don't know, or maybe I remember you, are New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI. So if these provinces, you can maybe to study and apply to the province. So if you studied in Nova Scotia, you have to apply to Nova Scotia under the condition for Nova Scotia. I'm telling you at this moment the condition for PEI. There is the other program for intermediate skilled program and high skilled program. So I'm gonna focus. We are talking about foreign workers, so I'm gonna focus in the intermediate skilled program. Why? Because you're gonna see, I think it will be that is this is the skillet the more successful when people can have points when they are under an LMAA or they are on the when they are under a work like in a fish plant or a truck driver. What is the difference? Someone can ask, what is the difference between the critical worker on the Atlantic? If you have an LMAA, which will be best? So that is depending on your situation in particular. With the Atlantic, you can land. You have the offer. We're gonna see. So what is the requirement at work? You have to be working in the last 3 years 1,560 hours. So it's around 1 year, 30 hours per week. So that is when you see which you start to see which requirement I fulfill. So in a year, so if a less doesn't have to be always. So some people work it here and went back, work it here, went back. But if you fulfill this amount of hours, you fulfill the requirement for the Atlantic. Education. You have to have a Canadian secondary or post-secondary certificate or a foreign degree. So they accept the foreign degree. It can be a secondary, so high school. It can be post-secondary, maybe the person, because I know there are many people who are educated. They are foreign workers. They back in the country of origin. They went to the university. They went to the college, but it came this opportunity of this work, and people can always change their career. So They have this career now, but in a time this person had a post-secondary certificate. That can happen. If this person have a certificate, a diploma, a degree in their country of origin, they have to do the ECA. Is the equivalencies. There are companies in Canada told by the federal government to do this. There are many companies, so you do that, and this company said you have to have your education is equivalent to this in Canada. You have to have the language test. The language test is also it's 5, so you have to have. Remember, with the worker you had 4, with the Atlantic you have 5. The proof of funds is also is lower, and because you have to show. The idea is you have to show the federal government that you have enough money to help your family to settle, but it's not so high actually. And you have to have a job offer. So that is interesting because as we saw with the critical worker, people have been working already in PI. With the Atlantic, the person may have been working, maybe not, in Canada. So they have the job, but this job offer has to be permanent and full-time too. So we are going to see the job offer. And this is a really important thing. The designated employer have to be a designated employer. So each province PEI have their own list of designated employers. What that means, a designated employer? A designated employer means that they figure it out, okay, we need workers. There are no permanent residents, there are no citizens in PEI to fulfill this job, so we need to hire a foreign worker. But instead of doing a LMAA, each time we are hiring someone, we do that once to the province, the PEI. So the province of PEI saw, okay, yes, I really believe you show me your proof that you need a foreign worker, that you can't hire someone here in PEI. So I name you designated employer, and you don't have to justify that again. You are just a designated employer. You have to offer an employment to a foreign national. So that foreign national, what means foreign national? To the federal government, from the federal government, I'm Colombian too, so I was born overseas too. We are saying it can be someone who is a permanent resident, someone who also, or someone who is a foreign national. Foreign national can be a visitor, foreign national can be a person under a work permit, foreign national can be an international student. It has to be someone. So a foreign national has to be someone who is not a permanent resident. That is what that means. As I said, the job offer has to be full-time, non-seasonal, and permanent. Look at the difference with the other. Here has to be permanent, the other can be at least 2 years. Here also the NOC, it can be 0, A, B, or C. The other one accept level D. This one no. Atlantic don't accept, it's just A, B, or C. So how it works? You apply to the Atlantic, to the province. Your employer has to also fulfill a form. They have to support you. The offer has to fulfill all the requirements, and you will have a letter of endorsement from the province. When you have that letter of endorsement from the province, you will have a deadline to apply, to submit your application to the federal government. Be careful with that. That is a deadline. If you miss that deadline, you will lose all your time and your money. Why? I already had clients who, well, and it's understandable. The person is working, is really busy working, it's a physical work, the person is tired and don't have the time, maybe don't have access to a computer, but be careful with the deadline. Don't lose this opportunity just because you missed the deadline. So once you have all the documents and you did all the hard work, finish and submit your application to the federal government. Only there, when you submit your application to the federal government, you finally are doing your application through the Atlantic program. So, and I'm gonna go. I'm doing really fast, so maybe this program is the TRPR. So, what is the TRPR? It's a program that the federal government created for foreign workers, specifically who helped during the pandemic. So, the federal government identified who has been helping this country to keep the economy alive. So, essential workers. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the people who applied, so they have a cap. It was a cap, so that means a number of applications to receive, and it was for Anglophones, so that for people who speak English and have a level of English, it was an international student that was really, really fast. It was one day. The essential workers who it was 3 months. It was a little bit of more time, but many people, but because they had to have the English test, many people couldn't have it on time, and they lost the opportunity, unfortunately. But there is still a space to health professionals, and health professionals is not necessarily a doctor. A health professional can be someone working in a nursing care, home care, working as a receptionist in a doctor's office, for example. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the doctor. It can be the doctor too. It can be the physiotherapist. It can be the dentist. But because I'm talking to foreign workers, I also give the other possibilities: home support workers, housekeeper, and related occupations. So this person has to have the work permit, have to have been working at least 1 year in these 2 years. So it doesn't have to be continuous. Maybe the person started working, coming back. But if the person fulfill the number of hours they can apply, the person has to be working right now at a job. Doesn't matter the job. It has to be working at a job and a level of 4 in the English test. Normally, there is all the application. This person has to can hire a lawyer or a consultant to help him, but the person has to do the application himself. And once the application is made, and that is after some months, the federal government realized that, okay, we are taking too long time to respond for the work permit, and maybe people who applied already for this program, or the work permit expired. So they gave the opportunity for an open work permit for people who already applied for this program. So if you are a health professional at this moment and you didn't know about this program, and maybe your work permit is almost expiring, I will suggest apply, because you can have this opportunity of having this open work permit and being fine with your status. You don't have to go out of Canada and having, okay, you have this opportunity. There is another where there is no limit for application, is the Francophones outside of Quebec. So if there is a person who has a French level, when we say Francophones in Canada for foreign nationals, for foreign workers, that doesn't mean that you were born in a country where the people speak French. For example, I speak French. My first language is not French, but I speak French. So I'm considered a Francophone for the federal government in matters of immigration. So people who speak French outside of Canada, they could apply for the essential workers, even for the program for international graduates or for health professionals. There is no limit. And the level is also 4. So the person has to have a level of communication in French, but it's not a high level to study in French and being a lawyer in French and all that. No, it's just a level to communicate in French, and the person has to have the intention to live outside of Quebec. Okay, so if you are a person who speaks French, not in a high level, but you have a level 4, and and you are your intention is living in PEI, that means outside of Quebec, I will suggest look at this program. You may have an opportunity here. This program is ending in November, so if you are thinking you have an opportunity, you have to rush. Okay, I'm thinking I maybe went too fast, so I'm open to questions. If there is any. Ryan.
Hear me?
No, here you go. Here you go.
Hello, I'm back.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Jael. That was fantastic. I'm thoroughly impressed. You got through a lot of information there. It's very well done.
I went too fast. So maybe
No.
if there is no question from the public, maybe if you have question, I'm
Yeah, no, we got one question for you, which
good.
means you did great. You were very thorough, so there's no need for questions. Just wondering about the Atlantic immigration pilot. Someone was wondering if that work experience, where it said there was a requirement of 150 or 1,560 hours over the last 3 years, does that have to be specific to the field that the job is in, or can that be any work experience?
No, it has to be specific on the field. Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
The thing is doesn't have to be continuous.
Okay, doesn't have to be continuous, but it has to be within
Yeah.
specific to that field. Cool, perfect. Well, that's wonderful, Jael. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I mean, you did a fantastic job. We really appreciate having you on here.
Yeah, I think it's also and for people sometimes people use strategies to immigrate, and that is valid. So if maybe you don't have the English level at this moment, you can now with this information, you can the people can have their strategies. Okay, I have to improve my level. Maybe I have to, or maybe I know, maybe I don't, I have difficulties for the critical worker. So next time I'm gonna see if my employer is a designated employer or the opposite. So, and there are many strategies that people do to, and don't be afraid, and don't be to do the strategies and go through, because that is normal. And then and sometimes, I'm gonna say something as an immigrant myself. I come from a culture, we a Latino culture, we appreciate humility, being humble. And one of the things I learned in the working culture in Canada is humble is not one of the values. For example, in Colombia, in Colombia, when you go to an interview and you show your employer, oh, I'm humble, and you really respect you are well taken. When I went for interviews here in Canada, I had to learn and force myself and show myself how good I am. That was my tip from an immigrant, that there are that understanding the values of the workforce in Canada, sometimes you have to change things on yourself. And so don't be afraid. It's not being aggressive. You can always ask to your employer in a really polite way, oh, I really would like to apply, are you willing to help me? And you can ask that. There is no harm in that. You can always continue working, but there is no harm. When I say you always can be humble, that is your value in your culture, in your country of origin. Your mom and your dad always told you that is the biggest value. But in the workforce in Canada, you have to show that you are the best. So that is how it works.
Yeah, it's competitive, little dog eat dog. Great. Well, Jael, thank you very much. For anybody listening right now, we will have Jael back with us again on next Tuesday evening. We'll do the same presentation, but in Spanish. So if anybody wants to share that through other avenues and whatnot, that would be great. We are happy to have her with us and look forward to doing it again on Tuesday.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jael.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.